going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about another 2016 follow-up film, Don't Breathe 2. In Don't Breathe 2, we don't have Fede Alvarez coming back to direct the film. However, we do have his writing partner, Rodo Sagas, coming back to not only write the film with Fede, but we also have him at the director's chair. In this film, we follow the blind man years after the horrific events of the first film, living in isolation with his daughter until another group of intruders come into the blind man's house where they have come to haunt him for the sins of his past. Now, I was really looking forward to this film because I was a really huge fan of the first film. I was late to the party to do that one. I did not get a chance to see it in theaters. I did rent it on DVD when it came out, and I really enjoyed that film for what it was up until the ending. I thought the ending could have been cut down a little bit, but I understand why they left it in. But in this film, we've basically just followed the blind man doing the same thing that he did in the first one, living alone in isolation with his dog, Shadow, and we basically just follow him and his daughter, seeing how they're adjusting to life until these group of guys come into the house because they know that there is a dark past between him and his daughter. So now this time it's not a prequel per se, but it is a follow up. Does pick up about roughly 8 years after the last film ended, or the events that progress with this little girl. But in this film, I was really looking forward to see what we could get. Even though I was really disappointed that Fede wasn't coming back, because so far he is 3 for 2. I have really enjoyed the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe. I was not a big fan of the girl in the spider's web, but I think his range really drives in horror. Even though we did get his writing partner behind the camera, that gave me a little bit of glimmer into what we could be expecting, because they did write the first one, they did come back to write the second one, and now we have a brand new story that is both impressive and lackluster, to say the least, because I really enjoyed the first half of this film when it was just an isolated home invasion like the first one. That's something that I really gravitated towards more than I did in the last half of the film, because it was really tense, and just like the first one, you're trying to remain quiet because even though he is blind, he's basically a blind Liam Neeson, where he's blind but he has a certain set of skills that he learned when he was in the Navy, and that congressed into the first film, which I was really impressed because that is a really great concept for a horror film, and I wanted to see what they would do with this one. I understand that people were disappointed that we weren't getting the follow-up to between the blind man and Roxy, which I understand, which I kind of wish we could have had happen. I wish we could have had that little confrontation, see what could have progressed, but I understand why they didn't do that and they went in a different direction. Even though this is a carbon copy of the first one where you have that home invasion, but somewhere deep under the surface you still get that nasty little twist that you were not expecting. And I think the twist in the first one really worked, with the friends finding out that the blind man has kept this girl in the basement because she killed his daughter during an car accident. And in this one, it is a little bit darker than that twist, but once we get into that twist, it really falls apart for me because I wasn't really hooked into what they were trying to do. It tried to go big without actually being big, and that really disappointed me because the tension that you get in the film, the basic horror of the film is just when these intruders are just sneaking around the house trying to kidnap the girl and the blind man's trying to protect the girl. It really was a tense and emotional moments for me. However, once we leave the house and it goes into a different direction that we don't expect, that I'm grateful that the trailers did not give away, but it does give us a little, it did show us a little bit too much as to what we could be expecting about who's going to make it out alive and who's going to die. And that's really something that disappointed me once watching the film, because even though there were some great surprises in the film, you basically just saw all the surprises in the trailer, and that really didn't flow well for me because there was nothing that I was able to gravitate towards. There was nothing that I was able to get scared of, and this movie was just basically a carbon copy of the first one where you still have that home invasion, people sneaking around the blind man's house, but this time with different types of motives. And once we get into that second half of the film, it really starts to drag a little bit and it loses my interest a lot. I wish we could have done a little bit different. I wish we could have kept it inside the house or around the house, but everything else is basically just the same thing that we get in the first one, just with a little bit of different twists. And this time around, instead of having the blind man be the protagonist, he's more of an anti-hero in this film. In the first half of the film, you really do still have that murderous blind man that you get in the first film, because you don't know what's going on. And even in the trailer, when you see the trailer, it does give you a little clue. Okay, this little girl has somewhat of a connection to the blind man. They do a really good job of setting up the tension between what's going on with these intruders and what's going on with the little girl, and then the blind man thrown into the mix. And I love Stephen Lang in the film. I think he still crushed it as the blind man in the first film. I just wish we didn't get that anti-hero Punisher type bait and switch, because it worked in the first one where he was just this homicidal maniac with good intentions or bad intentions, however you want to see them. He really is the villain that you really want to see die in that first film, but in this one they make him out into a anti-hero and they make you sympathize with him towards the end because of the bond that they've built within the blind man and the little girl. And that's something that I thought worked pretty well, trying to convey that little bait and switch, trying to help us root for the blind man, which he has a name in the film. I just completely forgot what it was. But overall, this was a really semi-disappointing sequel. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more tension, a little bit more fright. I wish we could have had a little bit more meat in the story. But overall, I thought it was semi-disappointing. And overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Don't Breathe 2 a 6 out of 10. Have you guys seen Don't Breathe 2? What did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments what you think of it. What's your favorite home invasion film? Let me know down in the comments what you think of it. And until next time, this is Josie Reviews.